Hi guys, Ian here. Welcome to my video and to my channel and to my morning walk. It's a really lovely day here in South Wales and the sun is out, the sky is blue, but it's quite chilly, as you can probably tell by the way I'm wrapped up. Yeah, 6 degrees Celsius, which isn't really what we expect in August, and especially after the wonderful weather we've had in the UK for the last several months. But as usual, when I'm out walking, my mind sort of kicks in. And today I find myself thinking about the nature of my spirituality and possibly the nature of most people's spirituality and how it tends to fall, perhaps, for some people, more firmly into one camp than another. Now, ages ago, I did a video, as I remember, where I talk about whether it's useful to define yourself. And the conclusion that I came to then was yes, that it is, because if we define what we are, it allows us to focus and concentrate our efforts along a certain path. Because, you know, as a wise person once says, if the student of the mysteries, if the spiritual seeker tries to become eclectic before they've become expert in any one discipline, then they end up being a jack of all trades, master of none. So yeah, I think there is benefit to defining our spirituality, and the school or the route or the type of spiritual practice that we are going to follow, at least in the beginning, at least until we gain the benefits of that type of spirituality. And once we have gained those, once we've gained some mastery of our chosen school, of our chosen pathway, then yes, bring in the broad richness of eclecticism. But to do that too soon risks never really achieving the optimal outcome of any one way. But that isn't particularly what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about recognizing within ourselves what sort of spiritual person we are. Now, that will generally fall into one of two types, possibly three types, but maybe two. That of the mystic or the ritual practitioner, the ceremonial magician. I hate the word magician because when we use that word now, we think of rabbits and hats and cutting people in half, don't we, in boxes? But the magician is the practicer of magic. So when I talk about the ceremonial magician, I'm talking about those people who practice the ceremonies associated with high magic. Now, what is the difference between the mystic and the ceremonial or the ritual practitioner, of which I guess I would also include the witches, because the witches have a very definite practice which involves, pragmatic activities, which involve using tools, which involve using, the elements of nature. And, my arm's given out a bit now. I should have brought that selfie stick. So what then are the differences? Well, to me, and what I find with myself, because I think I'm primarily the mystic, is the mystic tends to inner work. They're not so bothered, not so engaged, not so motivated by the outward practice of their spirituality. What they are more fascinated, engaged, drawn to is the exploration of the inner places, of the inner self, the inner worlds, the higher self, the higher places, and particularly of the nature of divinity and their relation to that. An interesting insight by Dion Fortune, which spoke a lot to me, was when she said that the nature of the spirituality is often racially ordained, for want of a better word. She says that that the people of the East are more naturally drawn to the path of the mystic, and I guess we do see this, don't we, with Hinduism and Buddhism, where the meditative, reflective, contemplative practices seem to come very easy, or easier to them than to the Western mind, because meditation generally is not a practice that is common within Western cultures. I know that it is becoming more so with mindfulness and such, but it isn't that common, and it isn't considered to be easy for most people, because the racial dharma of the races of the West is more to do with the conquest of dense matter, whereas the racial dharma of the peoples of the East is more to do with the conquest of the mind. Now, that's generalising, I know, because we'll find people in both categories who are the exceptions to the rule. Because if we choose to work against what is natural to us, then it's not to say we can't do it, but it could be a harder job for us. But as I say, myself, I find myself more drawn to the mystic path, and I try make an effort to balance that out, because for me, the mystic drive pushes me inward. It detaches me from the outside world, and not to the point where I abandon life, not to the point yet where I've wanted to go into a cave on a mountain, but I have recognised that my tendency is to inner work, to withdraw, to explore the inner places, the hidden places, the worlds behind the world in which I'm standing now. Now, if I do that, what are the benefits? What are the costs? Well, the benefits are perhaps a more direct path to the ultimate spiritual goal of all people, which is the spiritual experience of kata, union with God. But, I mean, I'm even aware that when I say union with God, I don't really know what that means. I talk as though I do, but union with the divine being, described as stepping into the light from which we do not return. Now, why? Why is it considered to be stepping into the light from which we do not return? Well, because to experience the consciousness of divinity in its purest form, we must reach that level of consciousness, which is unconstrained, unbound, unfettered, unlimited, without characteristic, without any kind of form that we would recognize as being form. And if we achieve that state within our own consciousness, then we would leave matter, wouldn't we? We would be beyond the need for the experience of matter. And so that which holds our physical bodies together for the purposes of allowing us to explore physical life would release, and we would cease to be physically. So that's why we walk into the light and we do not return. And that's why union with God, the spiritual experience of kata in absolute, is something that we talk about and we really have no idea what it is or what it means. And it's said that no one who is currently on the plane of physical manifestation can achieve the spiritual experience of kata in absolute, which is the highest of the four worlds of the Kabbalist. It is the world of emanations. It's the world of divinity. So I've completely lost my track of where I was going with this. Oh yes, the mystic. So yes, the gain of the mystic path is that theoretically you can progress more quickly because you go up the middle pillar of the tree of life. You go from Malkut straight up to Keta. That is your aim. That is the goal of your practice. Whereas the ceremonial magician, the occultist, would do more by way of exploring the side pillars of mercy, the pillars of severity, and would do more about bringing their experience and their knowledge back down into the material world for the benefit of others. So the path of the mystic might be more self-focused, whereas the path of the ritual practitioner, the occultist, is more to do with finding out and bringing back. So it's more to do with the benefit of other people. It's less self-focused. And I really like what, I don't know who wrote it, but what they said was that the purpose of the spiritual seeker is not to fight evil, it's to bring more light into the world. Now, if your spiritual path takes you on a direction in which you are attempting to leave the world in some regards and go straight up the path of the arrow and not to come back, then you are not really bringing light into the world. You're bringing light into yourself, but not into the world. So, yeah, to the way I see it, the path of the ritual practitioner is more concerned with the benefit of the whole than the benefit of the individual. Bringing light back into the world. Going on your journeys, learning what you learn, bringing back and sharing with other people who are also on the path, so that together, as a whole, the race progresses, the species progresses, the species evolves, bringing light back into the world. How beautiful is that? So sometimes, when we realise this, when we realise what we can achieve and what we can do, it might cause us to change our natural approach. And I think knowing this has caused me to pull back somewhat from the path of the mystic, and at least to try to balance my spiritual journeyings. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop now because my arm is dead. See you guys again soon. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.